how did This Is My Brave start? Well, I put my hand up to do a show somewhere in Canberra with the theme of mental health, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So when you're unsure about things, what do? You Google. So I Googled and found a theatre show to do with mental health, and it came up as This Is My Brave. Now, This Is My Brave started in the US, and there was a lady called Jennifer Marshall, very successful mother and partner, and when she had her second child, it caused the onset of bipolar. And she actually ended up first in jail because she didn't know that she had bipolar, so she was acting out. And then secondly, ended up in hospital. But once that happened to her, she noticed some certain things, that her friends dropped off and stopped talking to her because they didn't understand what she was going through and why she was acting out, because the police had to turn up to her house and handcuff her and take her to jail because her behaviour was just so erratic that even her family was scared. And she didn't know what was happening to her either until she got some treatment and to think a bit clearer about what was going on. But then she noticed that people were dropping off. People wouldn't talk to her. They wouldn't ask how she was. And she thought, what's that all about? And then she put two and two together. She goes, as soon as they found out that I had a mental illness, they didn't know how to talk to me. They didn't know what to do or what to say or how to approach me or how I would act. They didn't know what she was going to do next, or in their heads, that's what they thought. So she went, this is not good. What can I do to help bridge that gap of understanding about mental health and break that stigma around mental health? So she started This Is My Brave in the States about 3 years ago. They've done about 60 of these shows in the States. And they've reached out to a lot of people. And they're branching out into all sorts of things at the moment over there, as we hope to do after our first Australian show here. So why did I particularly pick up This Is My Brave? I had a very similar experience to Jennifer. I was the general manager of a company that was a very busy company, and our business basically ran 24/7. So I was on call and on tap basically 24/7. Eventually, it got stressful. I thought I could handle it. It got stressful. And then someone in my life got very sick and very ill, who I had to look after. And trying to juggle both of those, the stress was just overcoming. I didn't realise I was suffering from anxiety or depression at the time. I just thought I was overworked. Until one day, I collapsed at work. It was very dramatic collapse. I was unconscious for a minute. They called an ambulance and I was taken off to hospital. I had every test that you could think of done on me and they couldn't find anything wrong with me physically. Then I took a bit of time off work and I thought, I need a holiday. Probably I need a holiday, so I'll go away on holiday. So got on the plane with my partner, got up in the air, collapsed again, taken by ambulance off the tarmac at Sydney Airport to the hospital and spent the night there. Again, tested all over the place, head, heart, everything else you could think of. Still couldn't find anything wrong with me. So I read up, I listened, I talked to people, and I came to my own conclusion that I was suffering from severe anxiety and depression because for 6 months after those episodes, I, at various times during the day, thought I was going to collapse and pass out constantly. And all it was my anxiety and depression just raising above my own limit. One of the things that used to tip me over was coffee. If I had a coffee in the morning, I was gone for the day. It just overstimulated me. I finally got some help, but unfortunately my work is not as open to people with mental illness as we'd all like to think most businesses are. And I had to make a decision whether I stayed at work or stayed home and looked after my partner. And the decision was really easy. I stayed at work. No, I didn't. I stayed home and looked after my partner. So that took one load of stress off me, which was really good, but it didn't go far enough. I had to look into myself and go, Tim, what are you doing with your life that is causing this anxiety and stress? And it was just a build-up of many things. And during that time that I was in this job, I did not one skerrick of exercise. I'd sit behind a desk all day and look at a screen and deal with people and people's problems, and did not look after myself. I think that was the bottom line. I forgot to look after myself. And I got into such a state that I fell over. And the state I got into is because I was trying to be everything for everybody. And I found my limit of trying to be everything to everybody. I couldn't be, because I was being nothing to myself. So I had to embark on a journey of looking after myself, of thinking about myself, and getting to a stage where I could then start reaching out and helping other people. Because that was the end thing, was to look after myself, get myself onto an even keel so that I could then be of service to other people. Because that's what I want to do in life. So I've done some stupid things like taken up running, which led to, and Shane will know all about that. I know Frank's taken up powerlifting, which is even sillier, I think. Sorry, Michael. Sorry. Then I took another step further and I'm doing triathlons now. So, but I must admit, the release that I get from doing those things, even though it hurts and even though it's painful, but finishing them and training for them just makes me feel so much better now. And I was a big sports person when I was younger, and I just let it go, and it has helped me. I'm not saying it helps everybody, but it definitely helped me in my recovery. So that's why this happened tonight. That's what triggered this whole thing tonight. I wanted to be able to tell my story, and I wanted to invite other people to tell their stories, because I want other people to understand. People who may go, so mental illness, what's it about and how does it affect people? You're about to find out. You're about to find out from 11 people who have got varied stories of how it affects them, and it doesn't affect everybody the same way. And there's various levels and ways it can affect you. And everybody has a wonderful story, because they're all here today being brave to talk about it. So let's move on. So now you know you understand the background of this is my bro.
We didn't rehearse this, but I did think about and reflect a little bit on some of the comments that I might make in an opening tonight, because I think storytelling is so important to our lives and our cultures, and through history, stories carry truth through communities. And so that whole theme of storytelling is really important. And you've stolen my thunder in a way, Tim, because it was sort of half my story, or the story I was going to tell reflects yours a little bit. You mentioned that I've taken up powerlifting, which is true. You probably thought that, you would have thought that as soon as I stood up here anyway. You probably thought immediately powerlifter. You might think that of Michael too, but I was actually reflecting on a bit of a conversation that Michael and I had in the gym, and there's a few of us tonight, I noticed in the audience as well. Because, you know, the sort of why you're here story, when I got to the gym, I was actually a runner, and I was running too far, frankly. I got a bit ahead of myself. I ran myself into a bit of an injury, and it got worse and worse. Started to lose the feeling in my fingers, and a doctor said to me, look, I think the best thing for you is 2 plates and 6 screws in your neck. And I thought, that doesn't sound like a terribly appealing plan straight up. So I looked around for some alternatives, and powerlifting, of all things, is the alternative I'm having a crack at the moment, because it's building up core strength, you know, helping separate the nerves and doing all those things it's meant to do. And so far, so good. But that was the story I told to Michael as when he asked, you know, why you're here, sort of thing, at the gym. And it's a very easy story to tell. But if the story was a little different, and this is the reflection, Tim, if the story was a little more like the one you told, which is to say I'd worked a bit too hard and I'd overstretched myself and I worked myself into a bit of an injury, and now I've got to do something different, or I've got to take up things a little differently in order to protect myself from that injury and build up my strength and do things differently in the future. For some reason, that story attracts stigma and is harder to tell. And the fact that all these people behind me are going to tell their stories really puts them at the vanguard of changing those attitudes in society and making it easier for the people that fall behind them. And that's an incredible gift. So I just wanted to really thank you all for that, because 1 in 5 Australians experience a mental illness each year, almost half over the course of a lifetime. As Tim said, they're different journeys, it's different experience, but it's very, very common, and it's not something that we talk about commonly. And really, I hope for a day when, frankly, This Is My Brave isn't about This Is My Brave anymore, when you don't have to be brave, when we can just tell the stories of our lives and our struggles, and whether they're mental health issues or lifting issues or running issues or other issues, that those stories can be told easily. But that day will only come because people like the people gathered here are telling their stories, and people like the people hiding behind these bright lights are listening to those stories, and listening with empathy, and listening with hearts that are open to learning. And that's a great gift for all of us to be sharing. So thanks very much for the opportunity to be part of it, and good luck to everyone.
I'm really conscious of the fact that I'm standing between all of you and what is set to be an excellent performance tonight, so I will not speak for long. But it is, and particularly after those 2 sets of introductory remarks that we've already heard, but I want to really thank you for the privilege of being here tonight for the first performance of This Is My Brave in Australia. It's a great concept. Tim's told us about where it came from and the premise behind it, and it's a very powerful one. As we've just heard, telling stories is such a great way to understand and to share and to create empathy, and an opportunity like this is a really important one. And I'm pleased to see that the theatre is very full tonight here on the lands of the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of this land that we all now call home. When Tim first told me about this, I was really most impressed by the fact that people were volunteering to come and share their own stories. And this is actually the second night in a row where I think I'm going to hear some very powerful stories. Last night, I hosted a screening of the film Kaching, which is about poker machine addiction in Australia. And we just put this on at the Polish Club to invite people to come and talk about, what are some pretty difficult issues. And the thing that happened that I hadn't anticipated was a whole lot of people came along who actually had a gambling problem. And they stood up in the room and told us the impact it had on them and their families. And I was quite amazed, because I didn't expect that to happen. I thought we were going to have a real policy discussion about how we had to deal with poker machines, but it was very brave of them too, and it sort of is very much in tonight's vein. I met quite a few of the crew a few weeks ago. I know they were nervous about tonight. I've said to them to not be nervous, because, well, in fact, not to be fearful of the nerves, because nerves are real and important part of doing something like this. And so I simply want to congratulate all those behind us already before we even start on participating tonight and being willing to share your story with us. So thank you very much for it, and I hope you all enjoy the evening and really get something out of it. I know we're all going to. So without further ado, I believe I have the very nice honour of officially declaring This Is My Brave to get underway here in Canberra, and I wish all the crew a lot of luck tonight. Thank you.
Our first presenter is Sophie Hope. Sophie was the 2015 ACT Volunteer of the Year, so Sophie likes to put a hand up to do things. Experienced advocate, ambassador and community services worker and a student, also an actor and a poet. Sophie is a tireless worker for social issues, especially those affecting youth. So, welcome, Sophie.
So I would like to remind everyone that we are not defined by our mental health, and so please be mindful that what I am about to express to you does not encompass me as a whole. So hello everyone, I am Sophie, I am 24 years old, and I work and volunteer nationally in the mental health field. I have developed my passion for mental health because I've been around mental illness and suicide most of my life, and I now experience my own mental health issues. And with all of this combined, I really want to contribute my experience to helping others in this field. I've lived through a variety of traumatic experiences, including being drugged and sexually assaulted, domestic violence, and having loved ones in my life attempt suicide repeatedly. These traumatic experiences have made me develop a cocktail of mental health issues. I have been officially diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, and depression and anxiety. So we all know that there is so much stigma surrounding mental health issues. And in my personal story, I've found the most stigma surrounding PTSD and OCD. With PTSD, it has been because I have been questioned as to how can I have PTSD if I am a girl and I am not a soldier. With OCD, it is in pop culture everywhere. I badly want to increase people's understanding of OCD and other mental illnesses, and so I've started writing spoken word poetry. The poem I am about to read you is about the stigma surrounding OCD, and I would just like to flag that these are all true events that I've experienced, no artistic license. OCD, not you, it's me. OCD is not funny, you see. I have an illness at which people like to laugh. Time and time again they joke. Not to be mean, not to insult, then why? Lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of empathy. Even if I am safe, even if I am with those I trust, my illness becomes a noun or an adjective. Adjective. I am so OCD, I hear a stranger say, laughing. She was so OCD, I hear a policeman say, laughing. His room was so OCD, I hear a paramedic say, laughing. ACDC is so obsessive over their tuning, they should be called OCDC, I hear a friend say, laughing. A policeman was called into my friend's room as he attempted suicide. That same policeman said to me, I could tell he was OCD. His room was so neat, so ordered. I wanted to just move one of his DVDs to see how he would react. It would be so funny. My amygdala, my emotion center, it is strained. There's a chemical imbalance in my brain, medical description, which is hard to explain. Having OCD runs my life. Do you know how it feels? Let me give you a small insight, a small taste of the fight-flight. Physical. I can't hug my parents. I can't hug my friends. I can't sit where someone has just sat. I can't eat food that someone has breathed on. I am hours late to everything because I cannot leave the house until everything is just right. If certain people touch me, I get the urge to scrape off my skin and cut off my limbs, and I have tried to do just that. I am tired. Emotional. I constantly feel my actions will cause others to die, and I see the death so clearly. I second guess everything. My relationships are strained always. I am tired. OCD is a secret illness, I am told. It is not spoken of. I am told constant exhaustion. I am tired. Myth. I do not clean because of germs. I do not clean because I am afraid of getting sick. I clean because I see vivid images in my mind and they flash, and flash again like a horror movie in HD. I see my family dying because of me. I see my friends being tortured because of me. I see the house catching on fire. I see myself being raped. I see the dam break and the sitting flooding. I see the cars crashing. I see murderers murdering. I see death. All because of me. And my head tells me that if I don't clean, if I don't tap my foot, if I don't breathe in a certain way, if I don't pat down my clothing, if I don't fix my hair, if I don't avoid physical contact, that I will cause all of those horrible things. And I know my thoughts are illogical. I know my head is plain wrong. I do not believe in being superstitious. I am a science major. I'm lucky enough to be thoroughly educated. I am not someone who believes everything I am told, not even close. But this is different. This is different. My head is different. My head speaks to me like nothing else. It has a type of control over me that most cannot understand. And even though I do not believe what my head screams at me, I cannot risk avoiding the rituals, because what happens if the one time I don't clean, I don't tap, I don't change my clothes, I don't touch my hair? What happens if that is the one time that the fire does start, the car does crash, the murderer does the murder? It is not worth the risk. It is not worth risking the lives of those I love. Never. It never is. I am tired. OCD, not you, it's me. OCD is not funny, you see. Thank you.
We put Sophie on first for a reason. Very powerful story that Sophie's got. But the best thing about Sophie also is that she works tirelessly on social issues. She works for Headspace, yes, and actually puts her efforts into understanding and helping others who are in the same situation. So she's wonderful, and as you heard from her speech there, wonderful person. So next we've got Kristen Holt, who is a pet sitter, author and a trauma advocate. Kristen is an accomplished speaker whose background as a child protection officer gives her lived experience of trauma and related injuries. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi everybody, my name is Kristen Holt and I'm short. My name is Kristen Holt and I'm a social worker, author, and I own a small pet sitting business. After working for several years as a child protection worker, I developed vicarious trauma, which manifested as anorexia. This Tuesday is my 40th birthday. When I worked as a child protection worker, I was angry at my body. I had important things to do, and the nightmares, sweaty palms, and boiling stomach prevented me from doing them. Every day, I listened to stories of broken babies, shattered children, and families living the worst day of their lives. I forced myself to listen to these stories, willing my fear-filled body to sit still and not run away. I was, I believed, a crazy woman who was a danger to her clients. In 2006, I'd been a child protection worker for 3 years, and what I saw and heard in those years still makes me sweat today. Those stories and faces still prompt an irresistible urge to run away and disappear. In October of that year, I quit eating. I did so because of fear and unexpressed anger and an overwhelming sense of no way out. Eating seemed futile or indulgent. Not eating felt like an answer when there were no other answers. Following 3 years of fearful nibbling, I was hospitalised for anorexia. By this time, I was no longer working as a child protection worker, but the stories I'd heard never left me. Neither did the anxiety. I was struggling to come to terms with the loss of my social work career, and my attempts to re-enter the workforce were blighted by the fear it could all happen again. The chronic nightmares I'd been suffering for years showed no signs of abating. Maybe I was broken forever? In 2011, I was hospitalised again, this time for depression. Days after I was discharged, I quit my job, that I was about to lose anyway, and went back to university to study writing. Determined not to miss any payments on my mortgage, I moved out of my apartment, spending the next few years alternating between living with my parents and whatever cheap accommodation I could find. At a particularly low point, I presented myself to the Buddhist accommodation where, as a social worker, I'd referred my homeless clients. I began losing weight again. In 2012, I began university, started writing a book, and yet another battle with anorexia. My friends asked me to pet sit for them while they went away on holidays, and I enjoyed the brief moments of calm with these furry companions. Over the next 2 years, these animals offered me their paw as I continued my recovery. They sat with me as I woke from nightmares and licked my face when I cried. Pets have been an integral part of my recovery. 3 years ago, I launched my business, Canberra's Friendly Pet Sitter, and today I live as a gypsy, moving from one customer home to another about every 7 to 10 days. I live out of a suitcase and drive everything around in my trusty van. This unconventional lifestyle comes with the benefits of on-tap animal therapy. Animal therapy with animals who come in all shapes and sizes. Skinny, big-eyed greyhounds, fat Shar-Peis with velvety rolls, squat staffies with smiles bigger than your head. Lazy, athletic, giant, tiny, talkative, quiet, snuggly or independent. I love them all. I love them all for so many different reasons. Do we care a jot what each other looks like? No way. In 2014, I lodged an application for compensation for psychological injury. After a year-long trek through the wilderness of Comcare and the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, it was rejected. Devastated, I thought of the $30,000 I'd already spent on medical bills to date, the continuing medical bills which were mounting, and the poverty line wages I was now earning as a pet sitter. Again, I was fearful for my future, and again, my mental health deteriorated. Towards the end of 2015, I walked myself into the emergency department of the Canberra hospital and told them I'd spent the last few weeks stockpiling my medications in preparation for an overdose. In March 2016, I launched the book that had taken me 4 agonising years to write and brought back a lot of memories of my child protection work. I'd worked hard to bury those memories and had no wish to relive them. I persisted, refusing to give up until I'd said what I wanted to say, and now I feel better for having said it. As hard as those 4 years were, they offered me many opportunities for reflection, and one of the things I found myself wanting to do was to apologise to my body. I'm sorry I allocated my body impossible tasks and then got angry when it couldn't make everything okay. I'm sorry I didn't make my body a priority, and I'm sorry I cut it, starved it, drugged it, and put it through unnecessary surgery. I'm proud of my body for supporting me and all my efforts to increase the awareness of compassion fatigue and trauma amongst our frontline helping professionals. Thank you.
I think Men's Link is a wonderful charity for helping young men get through those years which they could either go one way or the other. And Martin and his team is wonderful at helping, guiding and mentoring those people. So Martin Fisk.
Thanks, Tim. This is my brave, but it shouldn't be. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I was interviewed for Mental Health Week on the ABC radio. And I told my story as a young man, teenager, some 30 or more years ago now, getting a bit of grey hair. And I spoke about a spiral into loneliness, depression, using alcohol and drugs to self-medicate those feelings of despair, and eventually building up a toxic combination of depression and anxiety and spiralling more and more out of control, so that one morning I woke up when I think I was around 18 and I was so scared I couldn't leave my room. But to this day, I can't tell you why I was scared. And I told that story on the ABC, and I told of subsequently being diagnosed with bipolar disease, of spending 6 months in a mental hospital, which saved my life. And I remember Genevieve Jacobs at the end of the interview saying, "Wow, that was so brave." And I was on there with another young woman telling a very similar story. And she said, "That's so brave that you could say that." And I said to her, "Well, you know what? I also spent 6 months in hospital recovering from a mucked up appendix operation. And I've got to tell you, that was harder. It was more painful. Nobody knew what was wrong. I had a million really difficult tests and I nearly died, and I had massive surgery and ended up in intensive care as a 13-year-old kid. But nobody says that's brave, that I tell that story. A bit like what Frank was saying when he was talking about the weightlifting and Tim was saying about the running. Nobody says, "Oh, that's brave. You've had a physical injury and you've told someone about it." But we do say we're brave to talk about a mental illness, and I'm not sure that we should. I must say, with the benefit of some 30 years since those dark times, that the mental illness has given me a bunch of benefits. And not only would I not be here tonight without those benefits and without having that mental illness, but actually my life wouldn't be as good as it is now. Mental illness has enabled me in those dark times to have incredible empathy for other people, which is a wonderful gift. In those times by yourself, because, as one of our other speakers said, your friends kind of desert you, it's given me insight into myself. Again, a wonderful gift. And when you talk to people who have suffered and come through a mental illness, you'll see that they also have an incredible insight that those who haven't been through tough times might not have had that gift. One side of the bipolar has given me incredible energy, which has meant I'd led a reasonable, successful career in a number of different sectors, culminating in this fabulous job I've got at Menslink. And I truly believe mental illness has given me a creative edge that I might not have had if I'd just sailed through life on an even keel. So I think talking about mental illness is not necessarily being brave, although it might seem that way in the beginning, but actually showing some of the amazing things that people with mental illness can bring to our community, the same as people with disabilities can bring to our community, is amazing. But mental health, and mental illness in particular, I should say, can be deadly. It is very difficult, if not impossible, to get through a mental illness episode without help. And time again, I see young men and older men, and some young women as well, bottle up all their feelings, pretend everything's okay, and pretend they can get through life and struggles and depression and anxiety and tough times by just putting on a mask. And it doesn't work. If you don't get help or help others, you can't get through those tough times. And I think for those of us who have levels of anxiety or depression or other issues in our life, it's incumbent on us to put up our hand and ask for help. And it is brave, actually, to ask for help. It's difficult, but once you do it, it's fantastic. For those of you who live with, work with, go to school or university with, or are just friends with somebody that you can see going through a tough time, just go up to them and say, "How you going? You look like you're having a tough time. Would you like to have a talk about it?" Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, mental illness is not a life sentence, and it certainly shouldn't be a death sentence either. Thank you very much.
Next up, and we've got some music. So we've got Duncan Sargent. Duncan hopes people will come out of this show believing that mental health is just a healthy part of our society and nothing to be feared or confused about. And I think Martin sort of alluded to that as well. And he yearns for the day when mental illness is not stigmatised. So I'd like to introduce Duncan and playing one of his own songs. Well done, Duncan.
Sat in the courtyard in the market square, and all good-looking people shot at me with a silver bullet as I sang songs to the moon. You gotta be one of them. Spat in my face, covered with Hessian bag. Ran down my throat, cause that made me gag. They try to break your legs with a gilded hammer, so you can't stand proud and tall. You got it. But nobody at all. First in the gutter, and it pissed on my name. Oh, the cool rain felt healing. I no longer bear shame. They threw me out. They couldn't bring me no more. You gotta be one of them. You gotta be one of them. You gotta be one of them, and nobody at all. Thank you. Usually the speech comes before the song. But I got a bit mixed up, so I'll just try talking now. I'm one of the really annoying type of people, very annoying, because I'm pretty much good at anything I try, very good at whatever I try, I'm good at. It's the truth. Except for two things. One was suicide, fortunately, and one was skateboarding, also fortunately. I thought with the skateboarding, I'd develop all these neat tricks and I'd impress the girls and they'd like me and I could, you know, be an arrogant tool. Oh, I got all these girlfriends, you know, everyone's lining up. Anyway, so the skateboarding thing went downhill once I discovered that I couldn't skate for nuts, basically. So I took up music, and I took up the guitar, and that's why I started playing. And it's been the instrument, no pun intended, the instrument of my recovery. And I also discovered a side benefit is girls liked musicians. But I came to this, my cunning plan came to an end one day when I discovered in England, guitar players were the second most sexy musicians. Does anybody hazard to guess what the sexiest musician is in England? DJ. Who would have thought, eh? So that song that I sang for you was a celebration of individuality. And if there's one thing I learned in my life, it's okay to be different. It's all right to wear a pink shirt if everyone else is wearing white. It's all right to go looking for aliens when everybody else thinks you're just playing a game. It's okay to think that poison gas is coming out of the air conditioning vents when everyone else just thinks it's air. It's okay to think that ants injecting tiny nanobots into your veins when they bite you. That's okay if everyone thinks you're just crazy. I could tell you a million stories like that, but I don't have time today. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Our next speaker, some of you will know because there's a few friends in the audience, is Michael Eichholzer. It's not easy for me to say. Sorry, Michael. Member of the Men's Link team, Michael is a crusader for young men who are struggling with life and a man wise with life experience who imbues his story with gravitas and a hard reality but an ultimately positive message. Did you like that? Because I just wrote that. So, thank you. And also another power lifter. So, Michael.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming. My name is Michael. I'm 56 years old. I'm married to Catherine, and I have an adult daughter, Deborah, from a previous marriage. I'm an ex-bouncer, a retired naval officer, a war veteran, a competitive powerlifter, and these days a public speaker. I also have an adjustment disorder. I've suffered from anxiety and depression for most of my life. My father was a hard man. He was a hard worker, a hard drinker, and a hard disciplinarian. He rarely displayed emotion and certainly did not know weakness or vulnerability. As the eldest of 5 children and a male, my father had a high expectation that I would follow his ideal of manhood and wasn't shy in telling me when I failed to do so. Love was not a word that was in his lexicon, and I learned from an early age to internalise my emotions for fear of attracting his anger. Big boys didn't cry, you see, or they'd be given something to cry about. I developed very low self-esteem and low self-confidence from an early age. To overcome this, I embarked on a path of hypermasculinity. I figured that becoming a real man would solve all my problems. I joined the Navy when I was 15 to get away from my dad. The Navy I joined was a men's-only club. Women couldn't join. And I found myself in an environment where I was judged by how hard I worked, how hard I played, how hard I drank, how hard I fornicated. I jumped from the frying pan into the fire, and I worked really hard to meet this new ideal, to continue to mould myself into this real man that I needed to be, and I became very successful at that, at satisfying society's expectations of what we needed to be as men. I built myself up physically, and I built emotional walls around me to protect me from the outside world. I became so good at suppressing my feelings, I eventually couldn't really fully connect emotionally with anyone. I wanted warmth and to be loved, and I needed to be constantly reassured that somebody cared for me. It didn't matter if I was in a relationship already. My lack of self-esteem was such that I needed others to prove they cared for me and that I was wanted, so I continually sought new relationships in this endless cycle of conquest and loss. I was married at 21, we had a daughter at 23, and I was divorced at 26. The state of my relationship with my ex-wife and the relationship I had with myself was such that I signed my daughter over to adoption to her new dad and lost all contact with her for over 20 years. I began working in my spare time as a bouncer. I was one of the tough guys that other guys looked up to, or even better, feared, and the girls wanted to be with. I was a man. At the same time, I fought with my anxiety and my depression with increasing bouts of crying. I was still hiding my emotions, locking them up in these little boxes that I'd put in a cupboard in my mind, and I'd slam the door on them. But every 6 months or so, I'd have a mini breakdown, and I'd cry uncontrollably for a period of time before I drank a cup of concrete, hardened up, and forged ahead. I met my wife, Catherine, in my mid-30s, and for the first time in my life, I felt an emotional connection with another human being that I hadn't felt before. I felt safe. I was still a tough guy. I still found it hard to hug my wife, but my womanizing days were over. My self-esteem started to improve, but I still found myself needing to be validated by others, to be approved by others, still living in fear that someone would discover that I wasn't the real man I professed to be, that I was simply wearing a mask of masculinity. In 2003, I deployed to Baghdad. I was at war. I wore body armour, I carried a weapon every day, and I felt that now I was really fully satisfying my obligation to the man box. At least until I got home 6 months later, when that door in the cupboard in my mind that had been holding all these emotions for 40-odd years just suddenly sprang open. It happened on a day when I was in the laundry with Catherine, and she asked me to take a basket of laundry out and hang it up. And for some reason at that point in time, I thought that was the most unreasonable request that had ever been made of me, and I got angry. I got mad. And I started punching the wall of the laundry. I turned around to say something to Catherine, and suddenly there was this look on her face that made me stop. This woman who'd literally changed my life, who'd shown me that I deserved to be loved, that I deserved to be cared for, was now looking at me with fear in her eyes. She wasn't sure what I was going to do to her or to myself. So I realised I needed to get advice. I needed to get some help. My first attempt didn't work too well. I went to a psychiatrist and she asked me to lie down on the couch and tell her how I felt about stuff. And to be honest, I didn't feel anything, so it was really hard to talk about that. But I played the game. I went through it. I decided all I needed to do was to harden up some more, to put a sturdier lock on that door to that cupboard in my mind. And I carried on. 5 years later, the wheels came off my little cart. I was studying in Melbourne while Catherine was living up here in Canberra. Her mother, who'd cared for me like her own son, had just died, and we were seeing each other every 2 to 3 weeks, putting on our best faces while both of us were falling apart inside with grief. Over the first 6 months of 2008, my mental state declined to the point I considered taking my own life. By July, I'd withdrawn from course, returned to Canberra, and I'd sought professional help again. I learned to understand my emotions. I learned what triggered them. Most importantly, I learned tools and strategies to manage my anxiety and depression whenever they reared their familiar heads. I think like many guys, I needed to be able to do something about my problems, not just talk about them. Don't get me wrong, talking is the first step, and I found over the years that talking about my condition has allowed me to become more comfortable with it, to accept it as part of me as opposed to being scared of it. I believe mental health is like physical health, and we've heard that so far already tonight. With the right coach, nutrition, activities, and sometimes medicine, you can improve your mental fitness in the same way that you can improve physical fitness. You don't have to wait until something bad, that traumatic event, happens in your life. You find your passion, your happy place, learn to relax, meditate, sing, breathe. It really doesn't matter what it is. Just learn to constructively deal with the inevitable challenges that will come with your life. This is what I've learned from my experience. Talking to somebody, getting advice on how to deal with struggles we all face as human beings, is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of courage, even strength. Nowadays, I talk to guys in schools, colleges, sporting teams, and corporate workplaces about the importance of talking, of getting advice for their problems. I'm not cured, not by any means. For me, this disorder will be a lifelong companion, a black dog by my side. But the more I've talked about my condition, the stronger I've become, the more mentally fit I've become, and the better able I am to deal constructively with my anxiety and my depression. I'm not defined by my condition. I've learned to thrive despite, or perhaps even because of it. Thank you.
We're at half time, and our special guest performer, Capo, is going to do a couple of songs for us. Jamil Capo Chadwick, is that correct? Cool. He's one of Australia's most talented and gifted rappers. He's based in Canberra, and Capo began initially writing rap to help him work through some of the personal challenges in his life. It didn't take him long to build a following, and 4 months after this experience, he released his first album. So our cast is going to move off quietly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're enjoying the event. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Evanessa Khan, and I'm a psychologist here in Canberra. I have a practice by the name of Lifestyle Psychology, and that's based in Gungahlin. Tim came to me about 5 months ago. Yeah, about 5 months ago with this idea about This Is My Brave. And I was really excited to hear about it because I'm really passionate about getting people to speak up and not suffer in silence. I find that when they suffer in silence for a really long time and then they eventually end up finding help, and let's just say, for example, when I'm seeing someone, it takes a lot of hard work to build that person up because they've just been suffering for so long. So that's my role here today. I'm going to introduce the next person, who is Rose. Rose she's a remarkable woman, and life has thrown pretty much everything at her, and she continues to fight, and she's got an amazing story, and she's going to come and share that with you now.
A tribute for Uncle Alvin. Goodbye, Uncle Alvin, you did not survive. I know the pain, I know the shame, the pointing fingers, all those condemning words. To me, I see that family should be the ones we trust the most, we love and are loved by the most. Sadly, so often, the truth is that is not the way it is. You could not cope with the shaming. In desperation, Uncle Alvin, you threw yourself in front of that oncoming train. You were such a precious person. Your lovely smile, your golden heart, all the stories you told that gave others cheer. You and I used to enjoy a laugh. Goodbye, Uncle Alvin. Like you, Uncle Alvin, I lived with others always pointing their fingers at me, always blaming me, always believing I was the lesser one than them, which led me to try to end my life too. Many times, thinking about it all the time. Rejection is a terrible thing. When I was a Salvation Army lady, I witnessed many men who were full of hurt, pain, and suicidal thoughts, and had so many conversations with others about this. My question is, how can people think they are always 100% right, and you're always 100% wrong? Goodbye, Uncle Alvin. I too know what it's like. All the pain, all the hurt was too much for you and I to bear. We weren't bad, just sad. Just very sensitive. Goodbye, Uncle Alvin. Like you, I wanted to die. But dear Uncle Alvin, I have survived. At 21, I was in a rehab centre for 6 months for geographic and emotional instability and suicidal tendencies and attempts. I had zero self-esteem, zero self-confidence, and I was bulimic. But I received great psychological help. It was here I met my children's dad, sad man, in bipolar, now he is deceased. When my children were babies, I was admitted to hospital for suicidal attempts. From all the condemnatory messages I had taken on board, I believed I deserved to die. I thought my beautiful babies deserved a better mother than I. Lies, lies, lies. Dear Uncle Alvin, I survived. I had been shamed like you. So much condemnation. But I am no longer bullied down that path. The word in the Bible that I keep close to my heart says there is no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. This is my safe place. My daughter too made an attempt to end her own young life. Like her mum, she was hospitalised for this. She too is battling family darkness that began when my children's great-grandfather on their dad's side shot himself in the head in front of the entire family. Like you, Uncle Alvin, he lost his life. Today I do not live under the oppression which led to those suicidal tendencies and attempts, and neither should she. Today my daughter and I live with hope, trying to instill hope into others. We look to the beauty of life all around us. We are grateful to be safe and alive. We dance on the demon of self-condemnation. We are thankful for all who prayed us into safety. I only wish you were here. Goodbye, Uncle Alvin. I loved you. Hi, I'm Warrior Rose. I am a mother of two. My son James has profound disabilities and diagnosed with bipolar, and I am his main carer. Today I'm sharing my story as a survivor of mental health, suicidal attempts, homelessness, advanced ovarian cancer, and domestic violence. Regardless of these issues, Warrior Rose was motivated to me to rise up and be inspired by, in the first instance, Indigenous women elders because of their shared stories of stolen generation and genocide, which helped me at the beginning to fight as a warrior for 13 years through family law courts. For my own family, the goal and purpose greatly contributed to my recovery, and I found along the way a voice that I could use to represent many in the same situation. I am now a mental health and disability advocate and speaker. I've spoken at the National Suicide Prevention Conference and the Recovered Futures Conference on empowering decision making. And I have just been accepted to speak in Hawaii on a disability and diversity conference. And I have been a co-chair for the Mental Health Community Coalition for 4 years. And I am with the Consumer Network Mental Health representative for Expo Week here in ACT. As you can see, even though the effects of mental health has been a circle surrounding my life, with the help of professions and carers and determination, I have found my warrior within. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rose. Just before Zeb hops up, Rose mentioned that she's been admitted to speak at a conference in Hawaii, but unfortunately she has to raise the money to get there. So she'll be putting up a fundraising page soon to help her get there. I think you need $1,000, is it? Yeah, so if you see that come up, please help Rose get over to Hawaii to speak at the conference, because she's got a wonderful story and she is a warrior, so help Rose. Yeah.
Next we have Chris. Chris is a geotechnical engineer for the last 30 years. He's worked in the UK, Hong Kong, China and Australia. He's now keen to work in the field of exercise therapy for people who've lived with experiences of addiction and mental illness. He's got an amazing story and he's going to make you feel like running a marathon.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to come and hear our stories. I hope that you will be enriched by the experience and possibly even empowered. My name is Chris, I'm 55 years old, and I've lived with addiction, depression and anxiety since my mid-teens. In the early days, I wasn't aware that I had depression and anxiety, of course. I just felt a bit out of it, but I put that down to being a Lancashire lad growing up in Leicester, or other factors. I never looked internally for what was the answer. What I do remember though is my first drunk. I was 14 years of age and suddenly I could talk to girls. The addiction to alcohol lasted about 36 years. Sadly, the ability to talk to girls, even with the benefit of alcohol, only lasted about 2 years. I wasn't even legally entitled to drink at that time. During the next 30-odd years, my life was a series of peaks and troughs. High points included running a 2:43 marathon, gaining a master's degree in geotechnical engineering, successful career. That's taken me around the UK, China, Hong Kong and Australia. Low points included arrests and numerous trips to A&E departments around the UK, Hong Kong and Australia. I dealt with everything by drinking. That would be success, failure and grief. During all this time I lost 4 female family members to cancer, and when I was in Hong Kong I got a phone call one Saturday morning, and it was my sister telling me my dad had died the night before, had a massive heart attack, and I just dealt with everything, cutting it off by using alcohol. The crash finally came in 2013 and I realised that I needed help. I entered the detox here in Canberra, at the Canberra Hospital on the 17th of October 2013, and I haven't had a drink since. But I have lost my career and my family relationship is broken, among other issues. But I haven't needed to drink. My depression and my anxiety are still there, but I'm learning to live with them and to recognise the advanced warning signs of the onset of major depressive episodes. I've also retrained in mental health and AOD, and I've also become a personal trainer and Athletics Australia running coach. My intention is to give back by helping develop personal training programs for persons in recovery. I'm also back at uni. I'm studying a double degree in psychology and sports science, sports and exercise science. One sad thing, people have alluded to it, I've been frustrated by the lack of employment opportunities for people with lived experience. So I set up my own company to provide personal training and other miscellaneous services. At the moment, to help pay through university, I'm using my company to deliver newspapers. Doesn't pay a lot, but it keeps the car going. Freed from the shackles of addiction, I now believe that if opportunity doesn't knock, build your own door. I'm fortunate that I'm able to do that. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are. Earlier this week, I gave evidence at a Legislative Assembly committee hearing on opportunities for persons with disabilities. And we were asked, do we have any good examples of where companies have providing really good support, and we had to say, well, we're sorry, but people don't come to us to advocate when things are good. Sad we couldn't give them any good examples. Whilst I was in early recovery, I wrote the following story which relates to events that took place during a 3,000 metre race shortly after that first drunk. The story is called Don't Look Back, and I'll relate it now. 3,000 metres. 7.5 laps, a long way. I've only run this far once before, back in May to qualify. I check out the opposition, 15 other runners, and I'm the smallest with the slowest qualifying time. My only thought now, don't finish last. Stop thinking like this. I've trained hard, I'm fit, I'm strong, but I'm the smallest with the slowest qualifying time. The internal debate goes on. We're off. The early pace is fast, not the way I like it, and I'm in last place as we pass the grandstand for the first time. My worst fears are panning out. As the race unfurls, I settle and find myself moving up through the field. I'm feeling comfortable, I'm feeling strong. By lap 5, I'm lapping the tail enders, and I've left the heat winner a long way back. Wow, this is going a lot better than I expected. Entering the last lap, I'm moving to second place. I risk a quick look back. No one near me. I look around and I've lost a yard. 300 metres to go, I'm 30 metres behind the leader. I'm feeling strong, I'm breathing easy, closing, 200 to go. I'm gaining his shoulder. I look back, lose yards, have to catch up again. We're running stride for stride. I can do this, or is it, can I do this? I'm feeling strong, breathing easy, what to do, look back. No one there. Look forward, I've lost yards again. Waste energy regaining his shoulder. Should I kick now? It's 150 to go. A long kick after nearly 3,000 metres. Pace is increasing with stride for stride. I'm strong, breathing easy. Look back, no one there. Look forward, lost ground. Waste more energy regaining his shoulder. 100 to go. I'm no sprinter. Wait then. Look back. Why? Lost more yards. Regain shoulder. Pace increases. I'm strong. Is he stronger? I'm vaguely aware of the noise of the crowd. 80 metres to go, one to kick. Look back, still no one there. More wasted energy, only 60 to go. Indecision, 40 to go. Now or never. Look back, stupid, 20 to go, this is it, go for it. We crossed the line together. Second place by a fraction of a second. Later I see my time, 9:43:42, more than 5 minutes faster than qualifying. For the first time in my life, I feel like a winner, getting plaudits, not put downs. As I was writing this story, I realised that this race contains a major life lesson. Sure, I have many regrets, not least that I wasted so long to reach out and ask for help. I always thought asking for help was a sign of weakness, but it's not, it's an act of strength. It's actually very liberating. But all of this is in the past, and I cannot change it. Focusing on the past will only hold me back and exacerbate my depression. To move forwards, I need to focus on the moment and what is immediately ahead of me. Carpe diem, seize the day. Thank you.
Next we have Cara Matthews. Cara has been singing and playing music since as long as she can remember. She's a producer for Social Issues-based arts program. Cara's lyrics are self-written and they are messages delivered from her heart.
Hi, my name's Cara. I am an actor. I am a singer-songwriter and a producer for a company called Rebus, who uses art for social change. I have had depression and anxiety for pretty much as long as I can remember. When I was 17, I was sexually assaulted at a friend's birthday party. And then again, when I was 19, with a different friend who I then had to keep alive for the rest of the night, which I did successfully. So she is now the mother of my godson, who is my world. For me, the thing that has brought me through all of this is my music and my art and my acting. Anything that I can do that is creative, it is my lifeline and gets me through everything. The other thing that works is that I have some amazing people in my life. And Chris, you were talking earlier about not having any good examples of work. Well, Rebus is one. The people that I work with have saved my life. They are, I can see you. Amazing, amazing people who have taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to not be okay, and that they don't accept my illness, they don't tolerate my illness, they embrace it and they love it, and they embrace and love my experiences, and they have taught me that I am a whole and beautiful person, not in spite of those experiences but because of them. So this song is pretty much my love letter to them, and it is called Impulse.
Next we have Mel Black. Mel suffers from anxiety. I find her absolutely hilarious. She tells an amazing story and she tells it in a quirky way.
Hi, I'm Mel, quirky Mel. I'm 42. I have 3 lovely teenagers and I work full-time in an office. I have a loving family and lots of kind friends. But sometimes I'm broken. Too many frights, too many moves and changes, too many houses and states and upsets, too much sensitivity, too much bad luck. I don't know, but I'm still here. I'd like to start with one of my favourite quotes. The first time I read it, I imagined a distinctly clipped British voice, like a major general leading a charge into battle. You are capable of more than you know. Aim high. Persist. The world needs all you can give. Now that quote was by Edward O. Wilson. He's a biologist from Alabama, so I'm fairly sure he's no British Major General. But still, for a person like me, who spent 42 years falling down, it's a great cry to arms. The world needs all you can give. Perhaps that sentiment isn't entirely achievable unless you have access to Donald Trump's Twitter account. But more than ever, I believe that a story told just to one person can make a big difference. Stories save lives, and the more sharing of our struggles, the less room there can be for shame, fear, guilt, and isolation. For despite outward appearances, none of us have all our little ducks lined up in a row. I have diagnosed general panic disorder and hide in the toilets at staff meetings and can spend weeks convinced I'm dying of a horrible disease before I realise, oh, that perhaps that had just been my anxiety having free run. I've also struggled with bulimia for 30 years, which clearly has not worked. And just like the endlessly debated chicken or egg theory, I'm not really sure what came first. Was I born with this anxiety disorder, or was eating the chocolate batter when Mum's back was turned just my thing? I don't know. I do know that I feel deep shame admitting to it. There's a sort of dark humour in realising that the longest, most successful relationship I've ever been in has been with the confectionery aisle in Coles. But I forgive myself for it. Something that I can manage to control most of the time are the full-blown panic attacks. I've gotten to know the looming spectre of doom quite well. I'm almost on a first-name basis with him, though not quite friendly or familiar enough to ask out for a drink. I feel that we've come to a sort of begrudged understanding of one another. I'll still worry and obsess about everything, but he won't push me too far over the edge where I'm making a scene, wild-eyed and frantic, gasping for breath. There can be an upside to living with generalised panic disorder though, in that by the time I really am about to die, I think I'll be so practiced with the whole process. I'll enter into it like a tiny Olympic figure skater on a flip jump spiral, and my last conscious thought will be, oh wow, I'm really good at this. My journey to recovery really began about 7 years ago when I was admitted to a Tweed Heads hospital with a suspected heart attack. So picture a blonde, 25-year-old male nurse with caring blue eyes and a long stethoscope coming towards me. When he undid my shirt to put the ECG stickers on my chest, I was thinking it was my lucky night. But then I remembered I was wearing my mum's second-hand beige-brown bra with about 600 clasps and heavy-duty straps. And suddenly I wanted the heart attack to be real. But it was later that night that this very caring nurse told me that it didn't actually have to be like this. He said I had put myself in the hospital by allowing my brain to have free rein and send messages of fear flooding my body. He taught me about the science of panic and that we needed to feel panic 60,000 years ago on the African tundra to get us to run fast from the saber-toothed tiger. But in our day and age, we don't need this flight or fight mechanism so much. Unless, of course, there's a 60% off selling Target. So I knew that I never wanted to spend another night in a hospital away from my children if I could do anything about it. And I could. It was hard though. Some periods of my life I look back on and think slipping myself into a straight jacket instead of a denim jacket might have been more beneficial. I really wish I had have gotten help sooner, and I wish that I had the following messages given to me during the worst times. You aren't alone. There is always somebody else feeling this way, and they are battling it just like you are. The voices in your head aren't real, and you do not have to listen to any old thing your brain decides to throw at you. Anxiety is just constant chatter in your head that makes you want to take your brain out, put it into a jar filled with gin, stick a menthol cigarette into it and say, here, stop all this nonsense. Calm down. You need to force yourself to find the evidence that what you are feeling is actually happening. The universe does not send you messages through traffic lights, and there is no way that just because you had a little feeling that you might die soon, that it's actually all predestined to happen. I'm living proof to say that is total rubbish. Your thoughts control the feelings in your body, and you can control your thoughts. Thoughts can be, should be, challenged. Demand evidence. Life is not a linear journey. We are all products of our time. My Neolithic ancestors would have seen me at 42 as ancient and wise. What stories might I have shared around a fire in a cave? Probably not the same story I've just shared with you today, but I hope in some small way I've made a difference and brought hope to even just one person. It's not a perfect life for any of us, and those little ducks, no matter how hard you try, just won't get in line. The best we can do is draw our own line and hope that at least a couple will hover around it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Matt. That was really well done. Where'd you go? Next we have Christine. Christine is an amazing woman. I can't put it into words, and I think I'll leave that to her.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine. I've been married, divorced, have 7 daughters, 5 of who are here tonight. And I've got 22 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. And I can't forget about our cats. There are 5 cats at my house and I'm known as the crazy cat lady in my family. I also have a rabbit who has the run of our backyard. I'm from Belconnen, and this is my story. My story starts when I was 15. My family moved to a sheep station in New South Wales on the Murrumbidgee River. That's where I met my future husband, and I got married a year later when I turned 16. The signs were all there, but for a very naive teenager, all it spelled was a fairy tale wedding and a happily ever after. I was wrong. But the thing is, I believe in fate. I believe our whole life is mapped out for us before we are born. And regardless of what fate has to offer, you need to go with it. But I also believe that you can change fate if you decide on the right path, but I took the wrong one. And for the next horrifying 19 years, I was subjected to physical, mental and sexual abuse. My whole life revolved around fear and dread. I would be okay in the morning, busy getting the kids off to school, then housework and shopping during the day, then dreading him coming home and the fear of what would happen later. It consumed my life. In that time, I had 7 children, several miscarriages, one of which was caused by my husband, and I lost twins at 7 months pregnant. One of the twins is the son I would never have. I wasn't allowed to see my family, as my ex said that he and the children were the only family I needed. This upset me a lot. By the time I left, my dad, who I was very close to, had suffered a stroke and could hardly talk. You never get that back, and then Dad passed away a few years later. My ex would send me out of the house at night if he didn't get what he wanted. Sometimes it was raining, other times it was freezing cold, and I would only have my nightwear on. In those days, the laws were different, and the wife had to charge her husband, and I was far too frightened to do that, as the consequences would be severe. I often had to go to the shops with a black eye or a busted lip. It was embarrassing, to say the least. My children also suffered emotionally. My husband would make the two eldest girls fight and argue all the time, and it wasn't until we moved away that they became friends again. And another daughter was so scared that she would go to bed as soon as he came home. The beginning of the end came when my husband got sent to jail for 3 months for non-payment of fines. The local police officer took me to Centrelink so that I would have an income while my husband was in jail. And the first time in a long time, we had food in the house and the bills were paid and the girls were happy. There was many a night prior to this that the kids would go to bed hungry or with just cereal for dinner because their father was supposed to bring dinner home, but he would stay out drinking until late. When my husband came out of jail, it was his birthday, so he celebrated at the hotel. He came home very drunk and threatened to kill me. Not everyone had home phones these days, so I sent one of the girls down to the phone box at the corner to ring the police. I had decided that while he was in jail, that things were going to change when he came back, as our life had changed for the better. And so I vowed to the girls that we would ring the police if anything else happened. When they arrived, I got outside and my daughter came out and said he had guns and he was going to shoot the police. So reinforcements were called in and he was later arrested after he left via the back door of the house. We were front page news the next day. He was sent to jail twice as he kept breaking his bail conditions, which were to stay away from me, and he ended up in court several times for the same reason. I was too scared to even hang my washing out. I would always have to check first to see if he was around. I was scared even to go to sleep at night, as I feared that he would come to the house. He threatened to burn the house down with us in it. I was finally moved away from that town by the police, but I found out where I was, and for another 8 years caused problems until I moved here to Canberra. How I survived those years I will never understand, but I got through only to succumb to severe depression, anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder, which was diagnosed about 5 years ago. One of my daughters played a big part in my rehabilitation as she got me onto victims' compensation, which got me around 14 months of counselling, which I hadn't been able to afford prior to this. I suffered terrible nightmares, but after getting help from my psychologist and getting a diagnosis, I was then put on medication, which virtually saved my life. It gave me a reason to live. There is life after a bad marriage, but I decided to stay on my own and be the best sole parent I could to my children. They were and are my life, and they deserve the best. My youngest was only 2 when we left, and my amazing eldest daughter was doing her HSC and managed to pass under all that stress. I am now doing volunteer work at a nursing home and I love it. I love helping people. I have a large family and they are who I live for. I also supervise my granddaughter for a distance ed and I often have grandkids to stay. The house is never empty. My ex is now in my past and I am a strong and confident person able to get out in society. I have beaten this, but in saying that, I will never forget what happened. But I try to only dwell on the good times with my children, as out of that marriage they are the only good things that came from it. So I stand before you today because I am a survivor. I am the brave. Thank you.
I've heard...
yeah,
I am next. Sorry, I've heard that story before, and 3 or 4 times, but it still gets me each time. She's the loveliest woman you could ever meet. She's just so cared. She's brought up a wonderful family. The girls in her family are wonderful, and I know that's why you kept going. So, and that story just gets me. That's the epitome of brave.
Thank you. Can you imagine standing in front of 100 strangers and sharing your life's most personal moments? Can you imagine that? That's scary, right? That's exactly what these people have done. commend you all enough. You are so incredibly brave for sharing that with us, and I'm very, very proud of you. I know we're only meeting for the first time, but I'm going to ask a personal question. You see, I'm a psychologist, so I'm good at that. How many of you know someone who has suffered because of a mental illness? Think about it, your family, your work, your friends, people in the community. I'm sure everyone in this room at least knows one person. So tell me then, why the stigma? You may think there is no stigma. Now here's the personal question. I'm going to give you a scenario. You have to be somewhere. It could be a meeting, it could be a social gathering. You can't make it. You need to call and inform them. Would you be comfortable calling and saying, sorry, I can't come today because my anxiety won't allow me to leave the house? Or would you say, I have a headache? If you're going to go with the headache story, you, my friend, are affected by stigma. You see, when you have a mental illness, it takes a strong person, a brave person, to actually speak about it honestly. But why? Because it's admitting your weakness, admitting that there is something inside of you that you alone cannot fix. It makes you feel vulnerable, and so we get scared. You see, no one's actually immune to mental illnesses, no matter who you are, where you're from, male, female, young, old, rich, poor, healthy or unhealthy. It does not discriminate, and it can affect any one of us at any time. Let me talk to you a little bit about our brain. The brain's filled with 100 billion neurons just buzzing away and sending that's how complicated it is, I can't even put it into words. It's electronically transmitting information. It's a very complex organ, perhaps the most complex one in our body. More complex, perhaps more chances of a glitch, a malfunction. That gives us even more reason to ask for help to manage it, one would think. So why is it that every time every other organ gets sick, it gets cards, it gets flowers, it gets well wishes, but not the brain? I asked myself, what is my goal here tonight? And as I said earlier, I do not want people to suffer in silence. People come to me time and time again and tell me they wish they had asked for help sooner, so they could have suffered less. And I don't want people to suffer alone. Suffering from a mental illness or caring for someone that has been suffering can be very isolating. The isolation encloses that person in and they feel that they can't ask for help. But why? It's because of how society views mental health. So what can you do, or what can we do as a society to actually help this issue? We can talk about it. We can talk about mental health and we can discuss mental health just like we talk about our physical health. We can stop the stigma by starting a conversation. Instead of becoming freaked out because you found out that friend next to you has depression and anxiety, ask him, how are you? Just like you would ask him if he had a cast on his leg, about how his leg was doing. This can actually help end the stigma, just by asking a question. Just something simple as, you don't really seem yourself today. Are you okay? Is everything okay? What's the worst that could happen? They could say, I'm fine, or it's none of your business. What's the best that could happen? You can make a difference in someone's life. You can tell that person it's going to be okay, and encourage them to go and see their GP. You see, speaking about it actually helps. Tonight, standing before you, is evidence of just that. Lastly, I'd like to thank Tim for making tonight happen. Tim came to me because he didn't want other people to suffer by themselves. He's a remarkable man. He loves giving and helping others, and I'm very, very proud of him tonight. Thank you all for coming tonight and supporting such a great event.
Just about the end of This Is My Brave. We've got one more song to go.
So we wrote this song actually for this. I wrote it my first time working with the lovely Duncan. And and this is kind of an amalgamation, I think, of a lot of our stories, and certainly how I feel about them. It's called This Is My Brave. You're my princess, and how's your name? This is my love, and this is my brave. I wrote these lyrics, a silent metaphor on this page. These are my words, and this is my brave. This is my love, the hope that I've craved. These are my words, and this is my brave. This is my journey. It's alright, let's go to the next verse, shall we? Met you in a dark and distant place. It was me you saved. This is my journey. This is my brave. Climbed out of this hole I dug myself, my brave. This is my hope, this is my brave. This is my love, the hope that I've craved. These are my words, and this is my brave. This is my journey, the memories I've saved. This is my freedom, and this is my brave. Day I tossed away these lethal razor blades. This is my freedom. This is my brave. This is my. This is my. This is my. This is my brave. This is my. This is my. This is my, this is my brave. This is my brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, the cast of This Is My Brave, Canberra.
Hello, thank you. Before we all go off, Duncan, would you, thank you. We wanted to thank Zeb and Tim. You guys have been an unbelievable support to us through this process. It is very difficult getting up here and talking about this stuff. So we just want to say thank you. Could you all please give a giant round of applause for these guys? Thank you so much.
Donna, you got some flowers. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Hopefully this is the first Australian show, so we should be proud that the first Australian show of This Is My Brave happened in Canberra. But it won't be the last, there'll be more around the country. And so if you know anybody who'd like to come along to the show or like to be in the show, just let me know. Because there'll be more than one. I've already got another 2 planned. So, oh, there'll be a youth This Is My Brave, hopefully during Mental Health Week, so in October. So, you know, anybody who'd like to be involved, it'll be out soon. So, thank you very much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed the stories. Some of them aren't that enjoyable, but take some messages back from that. Be brave and tell your story. So thank you very much for coming.